The legend of the Red Star Warfare Regiment and the millennium-old veteran Lu Mingfei who fought in the galaxy. When he inserted his sword into the throat of Chaos Warlord Abadon and achieved the death of honor, he found himself returning to his peaceful hometown. This is a reward bestowed by the Emperor, he firmly believes. While living his long-awaited retirement life, he also needs to easily clear some small troubles. Black King. It's just a crawler. White King. It's just a clown. Fallen mixed race. Blasphemy. Obey the Emperor's orders and eliminate the alien forms. Red Star Wars cooking class can be applied for if the fan value is above 100, 360.1,880.8,940.8 keywords of the novel. Dragon Clan. Lu Mingfei, who retired from Warhammer, has no pop-up window. Dragon Clan. Lu Mingfei, who retired from Warhammer. Download the complete text. Dragon Clan. Lu Mingfei, who retired from Warhammer. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Starting today, be immortal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Starting today, be immortal, Abadon. Facing the enemy standing on the corpse mountain, Lu Mingfei let out a furious roar. The piles of corpses under his feet are all his fighting brothers. Lu Mingfei. Abadon also roared fiercely, unwilling to be outdone. In this unprecedented war, the leader of this battalion also caused immeasurable losses to his black army. Come on, let me see how much dignity you still have as a warrior. Lu Mingfei waved the cold glory in his hand, which was jointly crafted by a super alpha level psychic and a mechanical sage. Even among the vast array of sacred relics, it is a rare treasure. In the hands of this millennium-old soldier, he can even wield weapons with power no less than that of the original. I will hang your head on my braid. Faced with Lu Mingfei's provocation, Abadon responded contemptuously. Even though heavily damaged by 2 Grey Knight teams, this Chaos Warlord still possesses terrifying blasphemy power. The dignity of a warrior ultimately lies only in the sword. In just a blink of an eye, the two giants crossed a distance of over 20 meters and collided. The collision between the holy sword and the magic sword generated a shockwave that even scraped off the ground by more than 10 centimeters. Without any words or expressions, there is only one deity who can return to their side, Emperor Xinxian and Chaos War Chief. One is the leader of the battle group, and the other is a veteran of 10,000 years. Their martial arts have reached the peak of the entire galaxy. There is no doubt about the fighting will of both sides, and the ultimate decision on victory or defeat is made by weapons. After another confrontation, Cold Glory let out a painful moan as its flawless blade cracked and its powerful power field generated a chaotic current. The holy relic has reached its limit. After all, it is only a mortal creation and cannot truly rival the demon sword Draconian. That is the magic sword that has seriously injured the Emperor, the product of humanity's first murder, and a symbol of the destruction of the Empire. Never. Lu Mingfei stared fixedly at the red and blue magic sword. He will never allow anyone to harm the Emperor again, nor will he allow anyone to destroy the human empire. Abadon, come meet the Emperor with me. Lu Mingfei pounced forward, still piercing his chest with a magic sword. At the same time, he swung his holy sword with all his might, cutting off half of Abadon's neck. Die. For humanity and the Emperor. Lu Mingfei used all his strength and lifted his head to crash into the sky braid. Where am I? Lu Mingfei woke up from a sweet dream. Interstellar warriors do not dream, the neural nodes implanted in their brains alter their sleep patterns, leaving them half awake forever. And he dreamed of a glorious victory, where the chaos evil gods and their minions were submerged by massive estates and the Star Realm army, and the alien and heretic forms were destroyed by countless bipolar torpedoes. Finally, the Milky Way gained purity and peace. And he and his fighting brothers were finally able to let go of their eternal responsibilities and return to the field. But this is obviously false. Lu Mingfei believes that that day will eventually come, but it should be witnessed by him personally, not in his dream. Who is it? The tricks of the Chaos Wizard. He quickly regained consciousness and began to observe the surroundings. A small room filled with all kinds of ordinary things and unnecessary decorations. On the opposite bed, there lay a human boy who was sleeping soundly, with a short and obese figure. There is no threat. Lu Mingfei quickly made an assessment and then fell into contemplation. Who is he? Using the meditation techniques taught by the White Scar veteran, Lu Mingfei quickly entered the depths of the memory palace. He is Lu Mingze, my cousin. I am Lu Mingfei, a freshman student at Shilin High School. Searching for dusty memories can be a troublesome task, especially when you have over 1,000 years of memory. Fortunately, White Scar's meditation skills lived up to their reputation, and he eventually recalled his experience before crossing into the world of Warhammer. Did you come back? Lu Mingfei felt a bit disappointed, but also relaxed. In that war-torn world, he finally found the meaning of existence and didn't know what loneliness was. But thousands of years of endless fighting have also left him physically and mentally exhausted. Returning to this peaceful and secure world, he may be able to rest. Emperor, if this is your will. Lu Mingfei silently prayed in his heart. After a moment, his expression moved, as if he had received some inspiration. Respectfully comply with the Emperor's orders. Before the Emperor issues a new order, Lu Mingfei will enjoy this precious leisure time. Brother, will we play Interstellar tomorrow? On the open laptop on the desk, a person with the ID, Old Tang, of a panda sent a message. Interstellar. StarCraft. He remembered the name of the game, which was his favorite entertainment before traveling, and the only thing he could be proud of. Of course, he no longer needs it now. However, the word brother still touched Lu Mingfei a bit. Sorry brother, I don't have time recently. He politely replied. Lu Mingfei doesn't mind playing with Old Tang, after all, before traveling, the two of them were also considered good netizens. It's just that he hasn't played games for thousands of years, and the controls have completely forgotten. Fighting against Old Tang at such a level does not meet Lu Mingfei's self-requirements and is also disrespectful to Old Tang. Okay, let's talk about it when you have time. But it's so strange. Don't you usually call me Old Tang? Old Tang over there seems a bit puzzled. Are you all brothers within the 4 seas? Alright, my aunt has come over, I'll leave first. Lu Mingfei tried his best to imitate his former self and found an excuse to leave. Just a few more words, he's afraid of revealing his true self. Turning off the computer, Lu Mingfei returned to his own bed and lay down. He knows he has a lot to do, but now he just wants to enjoy real, complete sleep. Despite this, his long-standing habit still made him wake up early in the morning. Lu Mingfei sat in bed for a moment, lost in thought. If he is still on the mothership, there will already be team servants to clean his body and then change into power armor. But now, everything needs to be done by himself. It's not bad either. After all, Superman's physique not only gives him extraordinary strength, but also gives him extraordinary troubles. Lu Mingfei put on his clothes and ignored his cousin who was sleeping like a pig, heading to the restroom to wash up. Basically, the entire process went very smoothly. He neither used the wrong toothbrush nor took the wrong towel. Although half of the toothpaste was squeezed out by him too hard, and his gums were bleeding from the force, as long as he destroyed the evidence, nothing would happen. This body is too weak. Lu Mingfei shook his head. Accustomed to handling a few tons of power armor, it is inevitable to feel various inconveniences when operating this over 100-pound body now. We need to strengthen our exercise. Even if temporarily retired, the soldiers of the Emperor should have a strong physique. I need money. During breakfast, Lu Mingfei said directly to the local audience. 3 people stopped their chopsticks and looked at him, unsure of what to say for a moment. They never remember when Lu Mingfei was so righteous and demanded money. He even grasps comics with Lu Mingze. What do you want money for? Uncle Lugacheng was the first to react and asked curiously. At the same time, he also had some speculations in his mind. What do high school freshmen need money for? They just go to internet cafes, buy magazines, buy snacks, and at most, buy milk tea for girls. If the amount is not large, Lugu City is still willing to give it. Although the financial power is not in his hands, he has still saved some private money. Apply for a fitness card. Lu Mingfei replied. What? The three of them were collectively shocked. Lu Mingfei said he wants to apply for a fitness card. Ah! Lugu City let out a scream. It turned out that his aunt pinched his thigh to make sure she wasn't dreaming. No, you're the only one who works out. After only a few days, you're not going, it's a pure waste of money. After confirming that it was not a dream, my aunt decisively refused. I will persist and not waste money. Lu Mingfei returned. That's not good either. We don't know yet. Whatever we do, we spend 3 days fishing and 2 days sunbathing. Auntie firmly refused. The main reason is that fitness cards are very expensive at first glance, and Luming's high school has more places to spend money, so she can't bear to spend this money. The money sent by my parents should be enough. Lu Mingfei looked at her. It's not just enough, it should be more than enough. He has a pair of parents he hasn't seen in many years and regularly sends money back from abroad. Thanks to that money, he can attend a private aristocratic high school, and his uncle and aunt can also buy a small displacement BMW. Uncle has the money to buy some high-end branded goods, while aunt can lose a lot at the mahjong table. Even his cousin Lu Mingze can sprinkle coins in the school to earn the title of Prince Zhe. Lu Mingfei used to not care much, his parents didn't care about him, and how high his expectations were for his uncles and aunts. Now he doesn't care, as long as they meet his needs. How's that enough? Do you know how much tuition you need to pay per year? Auntie choked for a moment and immediately started shouting again, unwilling to be outdone. All right. It's also a good thing if you want to exercise. You can also use the card Mingze. Uncle made a comeback. Auntie was stunned and then looked at Lu Mingze, who was 160 in height and also 160 in weight. That's all. She put down 2,000 yuan and went back to her room. Today, their little sisters is going to a new tea house to try water. She needs to dress up. Uncle squeezed his eyes towards Lu Mingfei, while Lu Mingze glared angrily. Lu Mingfei gave his uncle a smile, but ignored Lu Mingze. After changing his shoes and going out, Lu Mingze stopped him. Hey, you don't really want to go to the gym, do you? The gas cylinder said impolitely. Yes. He nodded. Just like you, fitness won't make you look handsome. Lu Mingze said displeased. Fitness is about becoming stronger. Lu Mingfei is in a good mood and doesn't mind giving him some patience. What's the use of becoming stronger? Lu Mingze looked at him with suspicion. Twist the throat of fate. When he said the last 2 words, Lu Mingfei couldn't help but show a hint of grimace. The gas tank cousin was so frightened that he leaned back and forced a sneer out of pride. Humph, the second illness. Then he ran away. I have a secondary illness, what are you? Lu Mingfei shook his head. Don't think he doesn't know, Lu Mingze's username is Lonely Greedy Snake, and he even posts some photos pretending to cut his wrist in red ink. If he suffers from a secondary illness, then Lu Mingze will be in the final stage of the secondary illness. Lu Mingfei also built a trumpet called Sunset Scratches specifically for teasing Lu Mingze. Of course, he definitely won't do such boring things now. The charming Loli, who once haunted the cousin of the gas tank, can only be forgotten in the world from now on. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Studying more is a beautiful thing. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 2. Studying more is a beautiful thing. I spent 1,500 yuan on getting a fitness card, and I still have 500 yuan left. I bought an unopened steel sword. Even without fighting, swordsmanship cannot be let go. As an estat, combat skills are a part of life, and a significant part of it. Of course, he won't practice at home. Even if my aunt allows it, even the palm-sized living room cannot be opened. Lu Mingfei chose to go to the rooftop, which used to be his escape from reality, but now it is his training ground. By the way, he will also recall his former comrades here, writing their names, deeds, and plans for retirement in a notebook. They have returned to the Golden Throne, fulfilling their eternal duty under the Emperor's illumination. But those things they cannot do can be entrusted to him to complete. Going to school. Lu Mingfei looked at his uncle. Yeah, today is Monday. Did you forget? Lu Gicheng looked at him inexplicably. Did the child have a fever? Oh, no. He replied, then bowed his head and drank congee. Go to school. Lu Mingfei quickly finished breakfast and then flipped through his notebook. Maxim Williams was born in the casting world of the Griffin II system in the obscure star domain. Identity. Lieutenant of Rongguang Angel Battalion 3rd Company, born as a low-level urban water thief. My dream was to enter a mechanical college and become a mechanical apprentice. Died in the battle to defend Baal. This is an impressive warrior with a very high artistic taste. He has helped Lu Mingfei identify many ancient artifacts. Unfortunately, he did not have much talent in mechanics, so he was not able to become a technical sergeant. However, studying engineering at a polytechnic university in this world should also be considered fulfilling his dream. Then go to school. Lu Mingfei packed his backpack, changed into his school uniform, and promptly remembered that he couldn't carry a steel sword. Although it's unopened, it's not a problem to smash the young master and miss to death. He studied the bus stop sign for a while before finally finding the one he wanted to take. Shilin High School does not directly indicate on the bus stop sign, probably because the students there do not need to take the bus. Except for Lu Mingfei. He thinks it's quite good, driving slowly and rhythmically, with crowded but stable passengers. That's what he wants to see. Some people may enjoy the thrill of racing between volcanic and earth-shattering cannon packs, but that's definitely not Lu Mingfei. In fact, every time White Scar's fighting brothers invite him to go racing, he will find various reasons to refuse. Because Lu Mingfei felt that this was too similar to the behavior of some kind of green semi-plant. Sorry. A girl wearing another school uniform leaned over and collided with him under the drive of inertia. It's okay. He smiled kindly. Among all the Star Warrior battalions, the Crimson Starfire Battalion where Lu Mingfei is located is probably one of the most friendly to mortals. Although it is a ship-based battle group and does not live with mortals on the planet, the treatment of war group servants and laborers far exceeds that of other forces. As an elder in the battle group, he naturally set an example and thus had many mortal friends. Perhaps sensing Lu Mingfei's kindness, the girl came closer to him. Can you help me? She whispered. What's going on? Lu Mingfei asked. That person used their phone to take pictures of me from below. The girl spoke in a lower voice, her face already flushed. Lu Mingfei looked over her head and saw a middle-aged man dressed in office attire sneakily glancing over here. Okay. His lips moved slightly, without any other movement. A few minutes later, the middle-aged man pretended to move over unintentionally. He first peeked at Lu Mingfei for a while and found that he had no intention of paying attention, so he became bold. A Nokia N95 quietly reached towards the bottom of the girl's skirt and was firmly grabbed by one hand. What are you doing? The man who secretly filmed was kicked to one knee before the villain could file a complaint. Lu Mingfei twisted his right hand with one hand and flipped his phone with the other. Opening the photo library and flipping through it, there are at least hundreds of colorful photos with very suitable angles. It's quite professional. He put his phone in his pocket and punched the man to the right as punishment for his dishonesty. The man who was still struggling just now rolled his eyes and momentarily hesitated. This move is called penetration strike, which is effective against creatures with kidneys and livers. Let's go. Lu Mingfei said to the girl. Hey, where are you going? The girl was stunned and hadn't realized it yet. Shouldn't it be sent to the police station? He has been made a bit unconfident. Has his memory gone wrong? Oh, okay. The girl whispered in response. To be honest, she didn't really want to go, but as she watched Lu Mingfei subdue the thief in the blink of an eye, she didn't have the courage to refuse. The power of slaughtering billions of creatures, even if deliberately restrained, would inevitably have an impact on ordinary people. Let go of me, I know which school you are from. Believe it or not, when I come out, find someone to kill you. The man who secretly filmed shouted loudly. Even if sent to the police station, the maximum detention is only 10 days. The girl showed a frightened expression upon hearing the words. Let's forget it, just delete the photo. She hesitated and said. The man who secretly filmed showed a proud expression. Tuocheng Trading Company, Limited Lu Hong, right. Lu Mingfei lowered his head and said. When are you? The man who secretly took the photo was surprised and saw the business card between his fingers. You should have a wife, right? Well, you should also have a daughter. Lu Mingfei observed the desired information from him. What do you want to do? The man secretly filmed was both shocked and angry. The best way to deal with enemies is to eradicate them. He said a proverb he heard from the White Scar brothers, which is said to have been passed down since ancient times. The tone of Lu Mingfei combined with his figure made this statement particularly persuasive. I was wrong, I won't retaliate against you. Please, don't mess with my wife and children. The man secretly filmed disregarding the gaze of those around him, trying to arch forward as if wanting to kowtow. I never believe in the promises of the despicable. You can seek revenge, and I will keep my words. Let's go. Lu Mingfei dragged the man who had been secretly filmed off the car like a dead dog, turned around to take a look, and the girl obediently followed suit. After arriving at the police station, the rest of the matter became simple. Both personal and material evidence are present, and the man who secretly took the photo himself admitted it very happily. After receiving verbal praise from the police uncle, Lu Mingfei asked them to provide a certificate. The attendance at Shirlan High School is quite strict, and he doesn't want his retirement life to be tainted. Lu Mingfei also got a picture for Lan Xin without hesitation. When they just reported the case, the two already knew each other's names. Thank you, Mr. Lu. Blue Heart whispered. It's a small matter. Your name is nice. He praised. Hey. The unexpected praise caught Lan Xin off guard. Blue represents a large amount of water storage, making such planets suitable for transformation into habitable planets. Lu Mingfei explained. Although he is not a mechanical priest, thousands of years have still allowed him to accumulate a vast amount of knowledge. It's the heart of the mood. Blue Heart murmured softly. Almost. Lu Mingfei responded lightly and then walked away. Lu, where are you going? Blue Heart was a bit confused by his words and actions. Of course it's going by bus, don't you have to go to school? He looked at Blue Heart strangely, wondering if the woman's intelligence did not meet the standards of an imperial citizen. What I mean is, do you want to take a taxi? I'll treat you. Blue Heart choked for a moment and said. Okay. Lu Mingfei withdrew his stepped leg. In this era, there were naturally no taxi apps, but fortunately, the police station was located on the roadside and there were many taxis coming and going. Lu Mingfei casually stopped a car and habitually sat in the middle of the back seat. As an elder in the battle group, he is always accustomed to sitting in the center of the soldiers, encouraging them with his own experience and teaching them with his own experience. And soldiers will also prioritize protecting this esteemed elder and safeguarding the survival and inheritance of the battle group. This person is really strange. Blue Heart, who witnessed his strange words and actions, had already labeled Lu Mingfei as a weirdo. But while being vigilant, curiosity is also constantly rising. Is Lu a student from Shirlan High School? In the continuous silence, she took the lead in stirring up the topic. Yes. How high are you? Blue Heart asked again. High school freshman. Hey, I'm in my sophomore year, so I'm your senior sister. Blue Heart said happily. Oh. Hurry up and call the acoustic sister to listen. Knowing that she was a senior, Blue Heart's courage instantly increased. Lu Mingfei didn't speak, just scanned from her head to the tip of her nose with his gaze. Blue Heart raised her head and slowly lowered her gaze, then crossed her hands and moved to one side. Women are really troublesome creatures, especially those who meet the aesthetic standards of mortals. Lu Mingfei shook his head imperceptibly, recalling the unpleasant working experience with those flamethrowers. I'm here. The taxi arrived at Shirlan High School first. Oh, goodbye, Student Lu. Blue Heart said as if waking up from a dream. If that person is bothering you, just call me on this number. Lu Mingfei gave her a note. The phone he asked his uncle for, the Nokia 1100, is an older style but sturdy and durable. Maintaining smooth communication is the fundamental principle of interstellar warriors. Thank you. Blue Heart held the note with bright eyes. Lu Mingfei opened the door and got off. It's already past school time, and there's no one at the school gate except for the security guard. If it were him in the past, he must be very disappointed at this moment. Finally, the hero saved the beauty and even shared a taxi with the rescued girl. If less than 30 people see this kind of highlight at any given moment, it would be a waste. If possible, he even wants to patrol every class with Blue Heart. Well, let's just forget it. Whether it was in the past or now, this kind of thing is not his style. Lu Mingfei. What time are you here for class? Lu Mingfei was caught by a passing homeroom teacher. I'm going to see the volunteers. He pulled out his proof before the storm. The homeroom teacher took the note with suspicion and carefully read it. Not bad, could you give a good lecture during the afternoon class meeting? She walked away with a lively expression on her face. She rushed to report to the grade director, and this matter could be well publicized. After greeting the physics teacher who was giving a lecture, Lu Mingfei quickly found his seat and sat down. It's easy to find, after all, only one table is empty. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. This is not a novel, but an autobiography. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. This is not a novel, but an autobiography. You're so brave, you dare to be late on Monday. The neighboring table threw a ball of paper over. Be brave and righteous. He threw it back. Helping the old lady cross the road or finding parents for the child. The neighboring table clearly doesn't believe much. Guess what? Lu Mingfei threw it back again and then turned a blind eye to the glare of the person leading the table. Physics class is naturally ordinary, but he listens very attentively. The constants of the two universes are not the same, and Lu Mingfei also needs to correct his knowledge through comparison. Why pretend to listen attentively? Are you going to take the Harvard exam? After class, the leader leaned over and said displeased. We agreed to be salted fish together, but you secretly rolled it up. Not going to Harvard. He shook his head. Where do you want to go? The neighboring table asked. Let's go to Harbin Institute of Technology. Both the school name and motto have a strong sense of engineering. Then your score is not enough either. The leader sneered at the table. Although Harbin Institute of Technology has declined in recent years, it still has a score of 985, and Lu Mingfei's score is enough to get into an ordinary undergraduate program. 2 more years, that should be enough. Lu Mingfei said confidently. He must have chosen a science major, and there is not much problem with his numerology and chemistry. He just needs to make up for it. There are still some differences between Warhammer creatures and Earth creatures. Coincidentally, the next class is Chinese class. Today's 2 classes will test your writing skills. The title is Unforgettable Day. The Chinese teacher wearing a black gauze skirt wrote down the topic of the essay on the blackboard. This type of essay is the best for writing, but the difficult ones are guessing questions like strange light and ladder doesn't need to be placed horizontally. What is the unforgettable day for me? Lu Mingfei was lost in thought. After looking back on his life of over 1,000 years, he found that there were so many unforgettable days that they could last for decades. Every unforgettable day means that he has lost at least one respected combat brother, or a planet has been declared dead. It's better to write something light-hearted, don't leave the experience of hardship for those who enjoy peace. Lu Mingfei thought this way, trying to search for less cruel experiences from his memory. Soon, he gained something. Orcs, a biological weapon that is half plant and half animal, were created by the ancient sages, and are also known as green skin because their entire body is green. Their vitality is extremely tenacious. As long as a spore falls into the soil, countless orcs will grow out of the ground the next spring. They possess their own Wayag spiritual power, also known as the power of my imagination. As long as an orc believes that something is true, it will become true under the influence of the power of my thoughts. The more orcs you believe in, the stronger the effect of my seeking power. This unreasonable power has caused the Empire a lot of suffering, but at the same time, the Empire will also use this power to counterattack the orcs. And what Lu Ming had to write was an experience of counterattacking orcs. In the hazy star realm of the Empire, an agricultural world was attacked by green skin. Countless green-skinned kids driving slamming cars and war motorcycles swept across the world, destroying countless biological farms. This is the only agricultural world in this galaxy. Without it, all 8 planets will face famine, and billions of Imperial subjects will starve to death. The Red Star Fire Battalion received a distress signal and arrived on this planet. But awkwardly, this galaxy is too remote, and besides the Red Star Fire Battalion that happened to pass by, the nearest Star Warrior Battalion will also take 3 months to arrive. And the only reinforcements they could find were 2 Valhalla Ice and Snow Warriors regiments that were being repaired. After the exploratory attack, both the commander and Lu Mingfei confirmed that the current military strength could not contain or even eliminate the green skin on the planet. Finally, at the suggestion of a technical sergeant who was always full of imaginative ideas, a whimsical plan was born. The technical sergeant developed a potent poison gas and dropped it into an orc camp. After the fall of the orc camp, the technical sergeant who was proficient in orc language and culture disguised himself as a motorcycle boy and spread rumors everywhere, emphasizing the power of this poisonous gas. As long as you take a sip, even the largest and strongest warboss will rot completely. Relying on his modified motorcycle, this rumor spread throughout the green skin camp on the planet within a month. Then, the technical sergeant instructed the battleship fleet to deploy non-toxic gases with almost the same color and odor as the toxic gas. Under his continuous dissemination, most greenskins firmly believe this rumor. Even a few skeptical greenskins changed their faith after witnessing the tragedy of their companions. In just half a month, this non-toxic gas eliminated 80% of the green skin troops on the planet. And the remaining green skin, which has lost all its morale, is no longer a match for the Crimson Star Wars and the Valhalla Ice and Snow Warriors. Afterwards, the commander of the battle team and Lu Mingfei jointly issued a ban, not allowing anyone to reveal the truth of this battle. And the technical sergeant who made great contributions was also sent to carry out secret missions. It wasn't until 50 years later that Lu Mingfei felt the limelight had passed before summoning the technical sergeant back. Even powerful interstellar warriors must learn to respect the duties of the trial court. After all, it's not a startup team, and they don't have the confidence to directly fire and kill a Grey Knight mentor. Although it sounds a bit magical, Lu Mingfei still finds it quite joyful. Especially when he saw the green skins screaming in terror in the non-toxic gas and eventually dying under the influence of his spiritual power, he couldn't help but burst into laughter and even drank a bottle of Fenris honey wine. The word limit for the essay is 800 words. Lu Mingfei briefly wrote about the battle in 700 words and expressed his poor evaluation of Fenris honey wine in 100 words. Fortunately, there is no space wolf in this world, otherwise he would face endless honor duels. After checking the essay and correcting a few grammar issues, Lu Mingfei confidently submitted it. Although his literary level may not be outstanding in the battle group, his writings are filled with emotions due to his personal experiences. Lu Mingfei. I asked you to write an essay, not a novel. The Chinese teacher glanced a few times and then angrily patted the table. What I am writing is an essay. Lu Mingfei calmly replied. He was puzzled why this woman suddenly became angry. Writing is for you to write about personal experiences, not fictional stories. The Chinese teacher gritted his teeth and said. Doesn't it look real? Lu Mingfei asked in response. Well, this one, the Chinese teacher reviewed the composition again and had to say that, aside from the facts, the tone and descriptive perspective were quite authentic. It may seem quite intimidating, but fiction is fiction. In reality, where did the green orcs come from? You're not a star warrior either. The Chinese teacher said half seriously and half sarcastically. Then, she excerpted some content and recited it. Ha ha ha, Star Warrior, does he think he's still a primary school student? No, 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 he's in the second year of high school, and elementary school students will think of themselves as Ultraman. The laughter came from all directions, shooting at Lu Mingfei's heart like a rain of arrows. If it were him in the past, he would probably say some useless words to fool him, and then try to pretend to be dead, waiting for the next hot topic to appear. But now, Lu Ming is not just responding to those ridicules with a calm gaze. Every person who laughs heartily slowly closes their mouths under inexplicable pressure. As long as it appears to be true, it is true. If you have not provided the standards in advance, according to my authority, I have the right to set my own standards. After the classroom quieted down, Lu Mingfei said to the Chinese teacher. Lu Mingfei, call your parents to come find me tomorrow. The Chinese teacher said angrily. Okay. Lu Mingfei shrugged and sat down calmly. Sure enough, females find it difficult to communicate, and so do humans and spiritual beings. Green skin seems to have no gender distinction, no wonder their communication is so simple and clear. According to the process, there will certainly be a review section later on. But with the example of Lu Mingfei at the forefront, those excellent essays seem dull and uninteresting. It's not bad, it's just too ordinary. Just like a husky among wolves, as long as the wise eyes appear, all wolves become supporting role. I think you wrote quite well. After class, Chen Wenwen walked over to comfort her. This girl, who likes to wear cotton skirts and lace socks, exudes a clean and artistic atmosphere all over her body, like freshly blown glass bubbles. On her first day in class, she was surrounded and admired by 7 or 8 boys, including Lu Mingfei. And he was also the only 2 people invited by Chen Wenwen to join the literary society, the other being Zhao Menghua, the monkey version of Chu Zihang. To be fair, Chen Wenwen is not very good to Lu Ming. Apart from her, there won't be a second girl who takes the initiative to find a way without talking, nor will there be a second girl willing to walk home with him. That childish love spans thousands of years, and in the end, it is slowly melted by a strong will, leaving only a sincere sentence. Thank you. You feel different today. Chen Wenwen is a delicate and sensitive person, and immediately discovered a hint of something suspicious. Yesterday's self is not today's self, only faith is eternal. Lu Mingfei uttered a proverb. He heard it from a holy blood priest and was deeply convinced. You look so sophisticated, have you become a believer? Chen Wenwen's eyes lit up. This kind of mysterious sentence is the favorite of all literary and artistic youths. I believe in the Lord of Humanity, the great emperor. Lu Mingfei is not a war priest, but if anyone is interested, he doesn't mind preaching the glory of the emperor. Just as he was about to start speaking from the Emperor Unification Terra, a voice intervened. Lu Mingfei, you were very brave just now. You dared to talk to the teacher like that. The monkey version of Chu Zihang approached, but her eyes were fixed on Chen Wenwen. Chen Wenwen also noticed his gaze and pursed her lips slightly. Warriors need not speak up. Lu Mingfei returned. When he first crossed into the Warhammer universe, he told many lies in order to survive. Even when he first became an interstellar warrior, he tried not to speak up in order not to be questioned for his loyalty. It was not until his fighting brothers changed one after another and he became the most prestigious and elderly warrior in the battle group that he confided his doubts to the emperor without hesitation. Sometimes, Lu Ming couldn't get inspiration from prayer. Sometimes, the emperor's gaze did not fall on him. But that's not important, his faith is as indestructible as shining gold. You don't really believe you're a star warrior, do you? Please, we're all high school students now, mature a bit. Zhao Menghua patted his shoulder. If you want to talk to Chen Wenwen, please choose the appropriate time yourself. I don't like people interrupting during conversations. Lu Mingfei bluntly exposed his ideas. Lu Mingfei, what are you saying? Chen Wenwen's fair face immediately flushed, and she stomped her feet and ran out of the classroom. Chen Wenwen. Lu Mingfei, you wait. Zhao Menghua gave him a glare and quickly chased after him. Ordinary people. Lu Mingfei shook his head. Even if he returned to his mortal form, he was too lazy to understand this childish and troublesome emotion. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. I want to teach you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. I want to teach you as a price for being frank. His aunt trained him for 10 minutes at the dinner table. The reason it's 10 minutes is because he thinks his aunt's words make some sense. If you don't get a grade for such an essay, you won't be able to attend Harbin Institute of Technology. In order to complete his retirement plan, he decided to give up documentary literature. I have eaten well. Lu Mingfei took away the dishes and threw them into the sink. He is becoming increasingly disobedient now. The aunt, whose spell was interrupted, was furious. Perhaps the rebellious period has arrived. Uncle replied. Rebel period. That's because your Lu family has a genetic problem, so Lu Mingze doesn't have a rebellious period, right? Auntie scolded uncle and then stared at Lu Mingze who was still cooking. Lu Mingze lowered his head to cook and dared not look at his mother. One or two, neither of them makes people worry. Auntie let out a strong breath from her nose. Lu Mingfei returned to his room and opened his laptop. Although the configuration and internet speed are not very good, playing single player is still enough. After several hours of playing with the drone, he quickly regained his former feelings. Meanwhile, Lu Mingfei found that his fingers were surprisingly flexible and his reaction speed was also astonishing. If you have this talent, why choose to be a scrap material? Lu Mingfei didn't understand his past thoughts very well. If the body he traveled through had such talent, he wouldn't have spent so much cost to enter the new recruit selection. After playing the game, Lu Mingfei picked up his bag and prepared to go to the gym. Open the door, uncle is reading a newspaper in the living room. Go ahead, your aunt has gone to play mahjong. He nodded his chin. Lu Mingfei nodded in response and put on his shoes to go out. Fitness, training, attending classes, and playing games, this simple and unadorned life quickly passed for 2 months. During these 2 months, Lu Mingfei's body also underwent significant changes. Old road, do you think the road has grown too fast lately? Auntie looked at Lu Mingfei, changing the light bulb with a rare hesitation in her tone. I have grown a lot. Mingfei, have you measured your height and weight? Uncle looked around and then asked. 178 centimeters, 85 kilograms. He exposed his own data. Is fitness so useful? You can also get one for Mingze later. Auntie glanced at her cousin, who looked like a gas cylinder, and her heart instantly moved. I won't go. Lu Mingze screamed and rushed out the door. Practicing the piano is already torture enough, exercising is really killing him. Fitness cannot increase height, it can actually affect it. Lu Mingfei shattered his aunt's imagination. Really? Forget it then. Auntie immediately gave up. It's okay to be a little overweight, but if you can't grow taller at 160, it will be difficult to find a partner in the future. Lu Mingfei changed his clothes, grabbed his sword, and prepared to go out. Lu Mingfei, what are you doing with this thing? Auntie's gaze was electric. Engrave inscriptions. He replied. What inscription is engraved? Your parents' money wasn't scraped from you, can it withstand your reckless spending? Moreover, wielding knives and swords is so dangerous. It's okay if you hurt yourself, but if you hurt someone else, you'll have to pay for medical expenses. Auntie entered combat mode. Boys, I used to enjoy playing with wooden swords and sticks when I was a child. Anyway, I haven't started yet, so let him play. Uncle came over again to smooth things out. Humph, just get used to him. Auntie left angrily. Perhaps she felt the change in Lu Mingfei, or perhaps it was because Lu Mingfei had grown up and his aunt's attitude had improved significantly compared to before. Although I have passed Auntie's level, the security guard's level will definitely not pass, even if it has not been opened. He placed his sword in the guard room, and another person walked in as well. Chu Zihang. Lu Mingfei quickly remembered who this person was. Chu Zihang nodded. He was not surprised, as there were not many people in this school who did not know him. Although he himself was not happy, he still dominated the top spot of the most popular person at Shilin High School for a long time. Chu Zihang looked at the steel sword in the corner, wide and solid, not like an old man doing morning exercises. He originally intended to let go of the wooden knife, but an inexplicable feeling prompted him to chat more with this person he had never met before. Do you also practice swordsmanship? Speaking of which, Chu Zihang had some regrets. His tone was too harsh, as if provoking, and he didn't want to cause trouble. Practiced quite well. Lu Mingfei nodded. Although it was not enough to affect him, he did feel that inexplicable sense of closeness. Chu Zihang breathed a sigh of relief, but fortunately the other party didn't speak much. Are you studying Chuanwu's sword technique? He continued to ask. No, it's a warrior's swordsmanship. Lu Mingfei shook his head. Over thousands of years, he has learned countless types of swordsmanship, including mortal, interstellar, and even alien. So he doesn't know what genre his swordsmanship is, he can only summarize it as a warrior's swordsmanship. It sounds very impressive. Chu Zihang nodded. He rarely evaluates others, but he is not incapable of praising them. This slightly polite sentence caught Lu Mingfei's eye and he took out the booklet from his pocket. Randall Cohen was born in Marculag. Identity. Veteran of the Origin Battalion 1st Company, Origin. The son of a small workshop owner. My former dream was to become a professor at Marculag University after retirement. Died in resistance to the 13th Dark Expedition. Randall was a knowledgeable interstellar warrior, particularly with profound research in philosophy and history. He devoutly believed in the Emperor, but at the same time possessed considerable rationality. Lu Mingfei greatly appreciated Randall and even gave him a captured iron halo. Unfortunately, he still died in the tide of the Black Legion. I can't be a university professor for the time being, so teaching a middle school student first can be considered as achieving my small goal. Do you want to learn? Lu Mingfei closed the booklet and asked. What? Chu Zihang was somewhat puzzled by his actions. Learn my swordsmanship. He replied. Class is about to begin. Chu Zihang checked the time. After school, I'll wait for you at the school gate. Without waiting for him to refuse, Lu Mingfei left the guard room. Strange people. Chu Zihang actually has no intention of refusing. He is like a cold sun, everyone is intoxicated by his dazzling light, but no one dares to approach. But the person who came to class with a real sword said with a higher posture that he wanted to teach him swordsmanship. I hope he doesn't put on airs. Chu Zihang put down his wooden knife and smiled inexplicably. Since the last time Zhao Menghua's thoughts were pierced, Chen Wenwen has become much distant from him. But similarly, Zhao Menghua tried to talk to her several times but was silenced by her. It can only be said that the ideas of literary and artistic young women are really elusive. Zhao Menghua's lungs were almost bursting with anger. The good thing of boiling frogs in warm water was stabbed by Lu Mingfei. Lu Mingfei, what do you say about this matter? He finally couldn't help but block people in the toilet with 2 attendants. What's going on? Lu Mingfei asked in response. Don't pretend to be garlic, would Chen Wenwen ignore me if you weren't talking nonsense? Zhao Menghua roared low. What do you want to do? He asked again. Find a way to get Chen Wenwen to talk to me. Zhao Menghua said. Lu Mingfei didn't speak, just looked at him and his followers with his eyes. Did you think of it? Zhao Menghua impatiently knocked on the toilet door. I'm thinking about how far I can beat you so that you won't be fired. He replied seriously. This is indeed a very complex issue, involving medicine, school regulations, and criminal law. Don't think you're amazing just because you've been growing stronger lately. There are 3 of us, and I can still call another bunch. Zhao Menghua was not frightened. At least it's a monkey version of Chu Zihang, and the strength of the coder is still there. It's really not possible. You can also spend money to hire some members of society. Let's start with our hands first. Lu Mingfei nodded. As soon as he finished speaking, he grabbed Zhao Menghua's head and pressed it against the wall. What do you want to do? Ah! Ah! Zhao Menghua let out 2 screams and his hands drooped unnaturally. It's just a dislocation. Lu Mingfei set him aside and looked at the 2 attendants. Su Yanyan and Su Miaomiao, twin brothers, are equally chubby, standing there like 2 vibrant basketballs. Boss Lu, we were wrong. Your Highness, have you spared us a lot? The 2 brothers surrendered without hesitation. Come together, let's go together. Lu Mingfei shook his head and walked slowly over. 2 minutes later, 3 people walked out of the toilet with their arms drooping. He is not afraid of them complaining, dislocations are not even minor injuries. Wait for 10 minutes, and Lu Mingfei will reset them. Of course, they can also refuse, and he will enthusiastically tell the teacher. Of course, they did not refuse either. 10 minutes later, Zhao Menghua and his 2 brothers found Lu Mingfei and requested a reset. In just a few blinks, he restored the arms of the 3 people to their original state. Having chopped down people for thousands of years in Warhammer world, Lu Mingfei knows the anatomical structures of various creatures like his fingertips. I'm not interested in your relationship with Chen Wenwen, so it's best not to challenge my patience. By the way, let me take a look at your English notes. He said to Zhao Menghua. Zhao Menghua's family hired an American tutor for him and he learned English quite well. Actually, Lu Mingfei's English was still good, but after thousands of years, he only remembered yes and no. The official languages of the Empire are High Gothic and Low Gothic, and their relationship with English is similar to that of Diga Ultraman and Guga Ultraman. Zhao Menghua reluctantly presented his English notes. Lu Mingfei has undergone tremendous changes in recent months, it's like a different person. He has watched a movie. There is a homicidal maniac inside who has undergone a drastic personality change due to intense stimulation. Yes, Lu Mingfei must be the same. To be tolerant towards mental patients is out of humanitarianism. The monkey version of Chu Zihang quickly completed self-comfort. Chu Zihang's physical condition is very good. If his talents are equally excellent, he can be trained as a companion trainer. Lu Mingfei looked straight at the blackboard while wandering around the object. Compared to those war group brothers, Chu Zihang naturally has a slight gap, but even worse, companionship is better than air swinging, and during this period, he has felt a significant decline in his swordsmanship level. If he continues like this, in 100 years, his swordsmanship level may not be as good as the champion of the Emperor of God. Lu Mingfei, come and solve this problem. The math teacher interrupted his thinking. If the value range of the function defined on R, y equals f, x, is, m, n, then. This is a math competition question that the math teacher presented to scare them. He originally intended to use those top mathematicians to kill monkeys and scare chickens, but it was not enough to make an incision. With such a prominent physique, he dares to daydream, clearly not taking his worries seriously. Lu Mingfei couldn't help but ask questions of this level, they were just dessert after dinner. He translated the problem into Gothic and imperial mathematical symbols, and fluently wrote down the problem-solving process. Although it's an unmodified brain, it's still quite useful. Lu Mingfei expressed approval for his own brain. Lu Mingfei, what did you write about? The math teacher looked at him with a painful expression on his face. Looking at the out-of-place characters on the blackboard, he felt a rare sense of embarrassment. If you don't know how to do it, don't cause trouble. Let's go down. Seeing that he had written so much, the math teacher did not scold him. The task is heavy and the road is long. Sitting back in his seat, the elderly man Lu Mingfei, who was detached from the times, clenched his fist. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Returning Home with Chu Zihang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Returning home with Chu Zihang. Due to duty reasons, Lu Mingfei left a bit late. By the time he arrived at the school gate, Chu Zihang had already waited there. Please accept my apology. Lu Mingfei lowered his head. Regardless of one's status or reason, breaking promises is always shameful. No need to exaggerate, I only waited for 5 minutes. Chu Zihang wants to ease the atmosphere. But he didn't know that such precise timing would usually only make the atmosphere more awkward. Fortunately, they are not ordinary people. Chu Zihang. Chu Zihang. So he's waiting for someone, right? Fortunately, it's a boy. Surprisingly, it's a boy. The crowd that had been watching for a long time began to whisper loudly. Let's go. Lu Mingfei frowned. Well, let's go. Chu Zihang also felt uncomfortable. Where are we going? After taking a few steps outside, he asked. Well, that's a good question. Lu Mingfei was lost in thought. Except for the area near his aunt's house, he is not familiar with other places. Otherwise, go to my house. Chu Zihang uttered this sentence by a stroke of imagination, and then regretted it, but it was already too late. Sure, I'll make a phone call. Lu Mingfei nodded and then took out his phone. Chu Zihang silently waved and called over the car that had been waiting on the roadside. Auntie, I won't go back for dinner tonight. Lu Mingfei said. Where are you going to hang out again? Internet cafes, game halls, gyms. Are you going to a bar? I'll tell you, Lu Mingfei, your parents handed you over to me, and I'll discipline you severely. Auntie was furious on the other end of the phone. She dared not even think about whether to go home for dinner now or what she would dare to do in the future. Chu Zihang asked me to go home with him. Lu Mingfei remained calm. Chu Zihang silently glanced at him. Chu Zihang. Is that Chu Zihang? Auntie's voice increased by an eighth. Yes. He took his phone a little further away. Oh, go ahead. Do you have any money on you? You can't go to someone's house empty-handed, do you know? Auntie's voice instantly softened a lot. I brought it. Okay, bring Mingze along next time. Lu Mingfei hung up the phone. Your car. He looked at the front of the Mercedes-Benz S500, which looked like a helmet fence, and asked. Yes. Get in the car. Chu Zihang took the initiative to open the car door. The back seat of the S500 only has 2 seats, which makes Lu Mingfei feel a bit uncomfortable. What's wrong? Chu Zihang asked helplessly. I'm used to sitting in the middle. He spoke candidly. Chu Zihang opened his mouth but closed it again. The driver saw everything in the rearview mirror and promptly interrupted. Then I'll drive a 5-seater next time. Thank you, Uncle Li. Chu Zihang accepted the driver's kindness. His stepfather is actually very kind to him, almost never refusing him, but he just doesn't want to make any demands. Just like everything he got was stolen. Passing through the street and the reflection of the steel jungle, S500 drove to a stop in front of a villa. It's here. Chu Zihang opened the car door, and Lu Mingfei followed closely behind. Your home is good. He commented. Oh. Chu Zihang responded lightly. Most people would say that, but it has nothing to do with him. How green the grass is. Lu Mingfei sighed. As a ship-based battle group, he rarely sees green. Even if it lands on the planet, those greens will turn into ashes after several rounds of saturation strikes. In fact, according to Lu Mingfei's identity, he can order an ecological dome system from the mechanical god cult. But he never used this privilege, except when fighting for a pioneer position. Chu Zihang didn't know what to say, but he had already started to get used to it. Zihang has returned. Who is this? Nurse Tong greeted her. This nanny from northern Jiangsu controls the household affairs of the Lu family, while the hostess only focuses on beauty, SPA, and shopping with her best friends. My classmate. Chu Zihang said with uncertainty. Oh, madam. Zihang has brought his classmates back. Aunt Tong shouted upstairs with a peculiar smile on her face. What and what? I want to see, I want to see. Accompanied by crisp shouts and the sound of high heels stepping on the floor, a woman in pajamas rushed down. Ah, it's not a girl. The woman saw that Lu Mingfei was clearly disappointed and immediately smiled awkwardly. Oh my, the boy is not bad either. Are you Zihang's friend? She looked at Lu Mingfei curiously. Even if the face is bare-faced and there is still hangover fatigue on the face, one can still see the beauty of a woman. As long as you apply a little makeup and moisturize, you will still be stunning. This is my mother Su Xiaoyan, and this is my classmate Lu Mingfei. Chu Zihang is introducing to both sides. The path, why haven't I seen you in the group photo? Su Xiaoyan asked. Although she doesn't pay much attention to many things, she has taken a good look at her son's class photo. I am 1 year younger than him. Lu Mingfei returned. A younger generation, still bringing it home, that must be a good friend. Although her son didn't tell her in advance that it made her a bit sad, having good friends is already the best news. The happiness on Su Xiaoyan's face was obvious, and her already well-maintained face was a bit younger. Time always shows special tolerance towards some people. Tell Auntie what you want to eat and play with, and Auntie will buy it for you. She tried hard to express goodwill and show the composure of an elder. Mom, go back and change your clothes first. Chu Zihang said helplessly. Although it's not too revealing, it's still not appropriate to chat with my son's classmates in pajamas. Ah, hee hee. Then you guys can play by yourselves. I'll go back to my room first. Su Xiaoyan stuck out her tongue like a child who had done something wrong, and then jumped up the stairs like a little rabbit. Do you want to eat something? Chu Zihang withdrew his gaze. No need, practice first. Lu Mingfei refused. Okay. Do you want to use your one, or should I get you a wooden knife? Chu Zihang asked again. Give me a wooden knife. Although Lu Mingfei is confident that he won't hurt him, using a wooden knife appears more fair. Chu Zihang went to his room and gave him an identical wooden knife. In fact, there were sponge sticks, but he felt that Lu Mingfei would definitely not like them. Two people walked towards the door with knives, and Aunt Tong came out of the kitchen carrying fruit. Eat the fruit before leaving. She shouted. We'll be outside and come back to eat after practicing swordsmanship. Aunt Tong, could you please cook my mom's sobering soup? Chu Zihang said. It's already cooked. What do you want to eat tonight? I'll make it for you. Aunt Tong said. Do you have anything you want to eat? Chu Zihang asked Lu Mingfei. Meat, big chunks, add more chili peppers. He said without hesitation. On the lawn in front of the villa, two high school students are facing each other with knives. Although it's just a wooden knife, with the blessing of their temperament, they have the texture of a real knife. If there were a director who filmed a drama here, it would definitely be shocking. This scene is really cinematic. Attack me with all your might. Lu Mingfei said as usual. Okay. Chu Zihang nodded, he won't be polite. Since Lu Mingfei said to attack him, he will do his best. Chu Zihang held the end of the handle with his left little finger and unnamed hand, and held it with his right hand below the edge of the sword. The tiger mouth of his left and right hands remained in a straight line with the sword, with his thumb pointing downwards and the sword body pointing diagonally upwards. The posture of Japanese kendo is called structure, and it presents a very standard mid-section structure, also known as the blue eye structure. Ha! He let out a low shout, and the wooden knife pierced a straight line in the air, the most basic thrust in Japanese swordsmanship, which was still pleasing to the eye even when he made it. If a girl or some boys saw this scene, they would probably have already screamed. But Lu Mingfei's response was only a fierce slash. The arc between the 2 points was further apart, but his wooden knife came from behind and accurately struck Chu Zihang's sword. The impact transmitted to Chu Zihang's fingers, causing him to involuntarily release the wooden knife. You are too impatient. In the absence of an absolute difference in strength, the initial attack must focus on probing. When stabbing the sword, don't look at the target area, but focus on the enemy's movements and be prepared to respond at any time. Lu Mingfei taught a lesson. He has said these words countless times and verified their correctness with the blood of warriors or enemies. I understand. Chu Zihang nodded and picked up his wooden knife from the ground. His Japanese swordsmanship was learned in the kendo class at the Youth Palace, with a tuition fee of 3,600 and a total of 36 class hours. He only studied these 36 class hours and has been self-taught learning ever since. However, with Chu Zihang's talent, even the swordsmanship learned by the Youth Palace is not inferior to those disciples who come from the legitimate dojo. He certainly understood how powerful and precise that sword represented just now. Just like a mud truck that never hits the wrong person. Come again. He placed the wooden knife upright on the right side to create a yin structure, which was a flexible posture that was conducive to chopping. This time, Chu Zihang did not choose the high explosive thrust, but instead opted for a more simple rope cut. The wooden knife made a small arc and struck towards Lu Mingfei's right shoulder. But before splitting the solid, Chu Zihang took a backward step and jumped out of the distance. Sure enough, almost as soon as he jumped out, Lu Mingfei's wooden knife came over. This time, Chu Zihang did not let go of his sword. Not bad, but not enough. Lu Mingfei pointed to his sword-holding hand. Chu Zihang looked at his hands, and there was a red mark on the back of his right hand. I was just excited and didn't realize it, but now I feel a faint pain. Don't just dodge with your body. The sword is both a weapon and a shield. Learn to use the sword for defense. Lu Mingfei continued to impart his experience. In fact, many swordsmanship teachers will explain these principles, but they will not tell students how to operate them specifically. How high should the sword tip be raised, how far should the retreat step be taken, and which angle is the most suitable for counterattacking from different angles. Lu Mingfei would tell Chu Zihang all these questions and use a dual approach of physics and spirituality to make him develop instincts. Come on. Come again. Do it again. Repeatedly attacking and being attacked, Chu Zihang felt like a small bug falling into a spider's web, lacking the ability to resist. But his little bug is getting stronger and stronger, and the amateur swordsmanship he learned from the youth palace is undergoing high-intensity hammering and transforming into something he doesn't even understand. Ha! Ha! Chu Zihang picked up the wooden knife for the 107th time, and then stumbled and almost fell. That's all for today. Lu Mingfei reached out his hand. Do it again. Chu Zihang was panting and staring at him intently, as if there were golden flames burning in his eyes. Okay. Lu Mingfei once again distanced himself and waited. Chu Zihang gritted his teeth and forced his body to slowly stand straight. Come on. He roared softly, like a stubborn young beast. Lu Mingfei thrust his sword straight, while Chu Zihang learned his movements and slashed the lower part of the wooden knife diagonally. Then, he was kicked away. Your body is also your weapon, make good use of it. Lu Mingfei pulled up Chu Zihang and helped him into the villa. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Don't gently walk into that rainy night. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Don't gently walk into that rainy night. During the training process just now, Su Xiaoyan naturally noticed it all. She naturally felt very sorry for her son's unilateral beating. But seeing her son's serious expression, she couldn't stop it. When Su Xiaoyan saw Chu Zihang standing straight, holding back the pain, she couldn't help but shed a few tears. My son has grown up. She thought sourly. Does he no longer need his mother? The idea that followed immediately panicked Su Xiaoyan. Tong Jie, let me pack the tray. She hurriedly went downstairs and rushed into the kitchen. This way, half of the credit goes to her for this meal. Cut the A5 grade beef into half fists and stew it in rhubarb. Lu Mingfei ate 20 of them in one bite. During this period, for hairy crabs, 8 oysters, 10 black tiger shrimp, and several vegetables were also eliminated. Did your classmate become a monster? Su Xiaoyan secretly poked her son. Mom. Chu Zihang looked at his mother helplessly. You are such a big person, and you still speak like a child. Compared to Fenris brothers, my appetite is nothing. Lu Mingfei hiccuped and said. Can they eat more than you? Su Xiaoyan asked curiously. Of course, the smallest meal among them can even weigh over 100 pounds of beef and drink a whole barrel of gin. He said without hesitation. Ha ha ha, where could anyone eat so much? Isn't that a whale? Su Xiaoyan was poked with a smile. Chu Zihang helplessly doted on his mother, who was laughing back and forth. I didn't expect that Lu Mingfei, who has thick eyebrows and big eyes, would still tell jokes, otherwise it would be a bit scary. After a full meal, Lu Mingfei bid farewell and went home. Su Xiaoyan suggested that the driver drop him off, but he did not refuse. Returning to my aunt's house, when I saw the Mercedes-Benz S500 with its headlights on, my aunt and uncle went crazy. Chu Zihang asked the driver to take you home his mother. What is the relationship between you and Chu Zihang? Lu Mingfei dug out his ear and took a step back to avoid drooling. I taught him some swordsmanship. Swordsmanship. Just your broken iron bar. Auntie couldn't understand how such an excellent wealthy person would fall in love with this thing. It just hasn't started yet. He defended the steel sword with a statement. Starting tomorrow, I will also teach your younger brother what kind of swordsmanship. Auntie had another idea. Chu Zihang was beaten 108 times by me today. Lu Mingfei said indifferently. So ruthless. It's okay, Mingze can do it. Auntie gritted her teeth and said. She made up her mind to let Lu Mingze accelerate and excel. I can't. Lu Mingze, who was reading the melancholic literature of youth, rushed into the room again and forcefully closed the door. Lu Mingze. You come out of here. Auntie immediately chased after her. Sigh, day by day, chickens fly and dogs jump. Uncle shook his head and then approached to ask. Is Chu Zihang his mother good? Looking. By ordinary standards, it looks very good. Lu Mingfei thought for a moment and said. Very good. Looking, how beautiful is it? Uncle's gossip soul burns brightly. Uncle, I advise you not to continue asking. He kindly reminded. Why? It's okay, chat. Uncle thought he was embarrassed. Lugacheng, you're itching, aren't you? The aunt behind her gritted her teeth and said. Wife, listen to me explain. Uncle was so scared that his soul was rising. Lu Mingfei shook his head and moved away from the farce. 2 more months have passed, and he is becoming more and more integrated into ordinary life. At the same time, the school's reputation has also improved. After all, Lu Mingfei's appearance was already not bad, and now with a good figure, his academic performance has steadily improved, which can be called excellent. Although her personality is a bit cold and her speech is a bit inexplicable, there are also many girls who are so aloof and have a secondary illness. Of course, he chose to ignore these truly inexplicable people. Rainwater poured down from the dark and bottomless sky, and the frantic electric snake was like a shiny surgical knife, cutting through the clouds with startling wounds. Lu Mingfei stood at the entrance of the teaching building, quietly gazing at the ocean formed by the congestion of umbrellas and vehicles. Didn't you bring an umbrella? Chu Zihang's voice sounded from behind. I never bring an umbrella. He replied. There is no such thing as rain in the lower nest, but after becoming an interstellar warrior, the power armor will block everything that falls from the sky for him. Let's go together then. Chu Zihang raised his umbrella. You can keep it for yourself, we won't be on our way. Lu Mingfei said. They didn't train today, so they went back to their respective homes. It's okay, my dad can pick me up and take you back. Chu Zihang said. Your dad. Mr. Lu probably won't be able to drive himself. My biological father. Chu Zihang explained, but seemed unwilling to discuss further. Oh. Lu Mingfei didn't ask again. He is better at listening than actively uncovering the troubles of others, which is the responsibility of a war pastor. Lu Mingfei took the umbrella and opened it, blocking the two of them as they walked to the guard room to retrieve the sword they had placed. Under his influence, Chu Zihang also began to go out with his real sword. Chu Zihang's stepfather, Lu Tianming, issued them a certificate for handicrafts. Thank you for the sword your mother gave me. Lu Mingfei touched the hilt of his sword. On the hilt of the sword is a golden double-headed eagle, with 2 wings extending backwards, wrapping around the other side. Although it is made of copper, the workmanship is also very exquisite. This is a gift from Su Xiaoyan, she thinks it's tuition. I should thank you. Chu Zihang raised his sword. The sword body needs to be narrower and thinner, and the relief on the hilt has also turned into a golden skull. Both swords were forged by Lu Mingfei himself, after being found by Lu Tianming. This is a small craft he learned from the craftsmen of the Fire Lizard, although the craftsmen in that workshop were amazed and offered him a high price for a part-time job. Do these 2 reliefs have any particular requirements? Chu Zihang suddenly became a little curious. The 2-headed eagle symbolizes the empire, and the skull symbolizes the purity of humanity. Lu Mingfei explained simply. Is there really such a huge empire? Chu Zihang asked. During this period, he also heard a lot from Lu Mingfei about the empire and emperors. Yes, I fought for it until I died. Lu Mingfei said indifferently, as if describing an easy task. Chu Zihang nodded, he couldn't believe it yet, but he chose to understand and respect. After a brief silence, the car waiting for Chu Zihang arrived. A square-headed Maybach has much more fences in front of its helmet than the S500. Here. A man poked his head out of the car window and greeted with force. Let's go. Chu Zihang lowered his head and got on the car with Lu Mingfei. Your classmate? The man asked somewhat unexpectedly. Can't we? Chu Zihang asked in a slightly cold tone. Of course, students should help each other. The man smiled. He could tell that Chu Zihang didn't want to talk to him, so he turned to harass Lu Mingfei. Little brother, are you in the same class as Chu Zihang? When did you become friends? I'm 1 year younger than him. We're not friends, he's my brother. Lu Mingfei said seriously. During this period of training, he has recognized this introverted but resilient boy. If it had been two people traveling together, they would have been able to join hands and cut down Abadon's blasphemy head. Chu Zihang opened his mouth without refuting. He, brother. At your age, do you understand what brother means? The man asked in the tone of a passerby. Lu Mingfei glanced at the back of his head and didn't speak. After all, he is my brother's father, and it's hard to say that I'm old enough for you to live for decades. Little brother, what's your name? The man continued to harass Lu Mingfei. Lu Mingfei. My name is Chu Tianjiao, and I am Chu Zihang's father. As for what you eat and how strong you are, Chu Zihang is like a girl when compared to you. The man exclaimed in amazement. In fact, Lu Mingfei also has some doubts about this point. He could feel the residual power of the emperor in his body, but he was not sure if he could achieve such an effect. There seems to be something else hidden inside this body named Lu Mingfei. What are you asking so much for? Chu Zihang became impatient. Just chat casually. It's easy to fall asleep without chatting in this weather. Chu Tianjiao defended himself. After a brief silence, he couldn't help but speak again. How has your mother been lately? Are you doing well in your studies? Your sophomore year is a crucial period for laying a foundation, so you must listen carefully to the class. If you are not good at any subject, let your mother hire a tutor for you. Do you have any girls you like? Even girls who like you are fine. But you look as handsome as me, so there must be many girls who like you. Chu Tianjiao chattered on, some having said it, some not. Chu Zihang did not answer, nor did he care. Chu Tianjiao seemed to have just seized an opportunity, as if he wanted to finish all his life's words. Chu Zihang glanced at Lu Mingfei and found that the other person was not affected by the noise, but was reciting something to himself. What are you doing? He asked. Prayer. Lu Mingfei returned. To your emperor. Chu Zihang naturally knew the deity he believed in. I am recounting my recent actions and seeking his inspiration. He said. Always wipe frequently to avoid heresy. It sounds like reporting work to the boss. Chu Tianjiao interjected. Lu Mingfei glanced at him, and if he were a fanatic believer of the Black Holy Church battle squad, now Chu Tianjiao had already been cut into pieces with his men and vehicles. We don't need any remuneration, serving the emperor is the best reward. Thinking that the other party was a mortal who was not illuminated by the light of the emperor, he still explained. If that emperor is really so great, I hope he can make the rain less. I can't even see the road clearly. Chu Tianjiao roast. Now we are broadcasting the typhoon emergency warning and road condition information. According to the news released by the Municipal Meteorological Station, Typhoon Dandelion, with the number 0407 of this year made landfall on the southeast coast of our city this afternoon. It is expected to bring heavy rainfall and a force 10 strong wind. Please take timely precautions. Due to high-intensity rainfall, provincial and national roads passing through this city will be closed in 2 hours. Elevated roads have high wind speeds and visibility below 30 meters. Drivers who are still driving on the road are advised to take a detour. At this moment, the sound on the radio rang out at the right time, and the sky seemed to have opened a hole. Rainwater splashed down like free water, causing the car to make a clattering sound. The Emperor's great power would not be used for stopping the rain. The black luxury car drove into a wide and uninhabited fork in the heavy rain that could almost submerge the human world. It's too congested ahead to get out. Don't worry, your dad and I know this city like the back of my hand. No matter where you go from, we can take you home. Chu Tianjiao boasted to his son about the sea. Hee hee. Chu Zihang gave a conscious and sufficient response. Surprisingly, as soon as the vehicle entered a fork in the road, the sound of wind and rain outside immediately became much quieter. No, it should be said that it has completely stopped. Lu Mingfei quietly watched the little boy who suddenly appeared without any movement or expression. The best way to face an unknown existence is to do nothing. This is a method taught by a national pastor, who fought against a demon scripture for 100 years before finally being corrupted by chaos. Finally, Lu Mingfei personally used a hot melt gun to give him the final purification. "Brother, long time no see," the little boy said in a nostalgic tone. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Maybach was used to chop. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Maybach was used to chop. I have never seen you before. Lu Mingfei said coldly. But I have always been by your side. Oh, not really. Your soul seems to have left and undergone significant changes. Where did you go, brother? The little boy asked. Shouldn't you report your home before asking others? Lu Mingfei asked in response. Brother, you have really changed. You have become not cute at all. The little boy said softly. I am very satisfied with this. He said coldly. Whether fighting for humanity in the Emperor, or enjoying retirement in this peaceful hometown, he feels fulfilled and joyful. Okay, it seems I need to learn how to communicate with fanatics. The little boy shrugged his shoulders. Lu Mingfei made no evaluation of his words. The last piece of advice, brother, is to get off the car in time. We didn't invite you to this banquet. The little boy suddenly spoke in a serious tone. Lu Mingfei thought for a few seconds before understanding what he meant. Whose funeral? He asked. Although it has been delayed for a long time, the destined fate has finally arrived. The little boy continued to play the role of the Riddler. Lu Mingfei stopped asking, and the best way to deal with these riddles is to pretend they don't exist. Since you insist on doing so, brother, I wish you a smooth journey. If you need help, just call out my name loudly. Your dear brother, Lu Mingze. The little boy snapped his fingers and disappeared. The deep voice was covered by the restored sound of wind and rain, as if it had never appeared before. What's wrong? Chu Zihang asked. He noticed that Lu Mingfei's expression was not quite right. As an elder who has lived for thousands of years, he has fought countless demons and even torn apart a cunning demon. So, when faced with the self-proclaimed existence of Lu Mingze, Lu Mingfei did not react excessively. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have any pressure. At this moment, a thin layer of sweat has oozed from behind him. Get your weapons ready for battle. Lu Mingfei whispered. The words of demons are naturally untrustworthy, but it is always right to be prepared for battle. What happened? Chu Zihang didn't understand, but out of trust, he still held on to the hilt of the sword. How did you take out the sword? It's still a real sword, it's too dangerous. Your mother doesn't care about you. Chu Tianjiao saw this scene from the rearview mirror and frowned. Since it's not related to oneself, it can only be related to the other two people in the car. Chu Zihang may also have a problem, but his intuition tells Lu Mingfei that it's not him. Then it can only be this driver's father with a gloomy expression on his face. Chu Tianjiao, you may be in trouble. He couldn't say, Dad, and could only call by name. What trouble can I have? I treat people well day by day. Chu Tianjiao didn't care about Lu Mingfei's impoliteness and said nonchalantly. At the next moment, he slammed on the brake. Lu Mingfei remained motionless, and Chu Zihang pounced forward, but was also stopped by his sturdy arm. Something's wrong. Chu Tianjiao murmured to himself. The greasy and talkative man just now has disappeared, and now his face is serious, even the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes are as tight as steel wire. You too, fasten your seatbelts and don't look out the window. After Chu Tianjiao finished speaking with his front foot, he stepped on the gas pedal with his back foot. The Maybach, which accelerated from 100 km to 5.5 seconds, quickly reached 120 km per hour. The scenery outside the car became one after another remnants, and people who get sick can vomit themselves at a glance. At this moment, the already silent car radio started ringing again. Low laughter echoed in the carriage, grand and solemn yet strange and eerie, slowly enveloping them like they were wrapped in a bronze ancient bell. Chu Zihang looked at his father in the rearview mirror, and the thick blue blood vessels on the man's face protruded from the surface, like a small snake that felt danger and wanted to escape from the cave. What's going on? He couldn't help but ask. Lu Mingfei knew, and the man also knew, as if he was the only one who didn't know. Don't ask, son, don't ask. I've paid so much to make you not know. Chu Tianjiao almost begged and said. However, this sentence ignited the anger accumulated by Chu Zihang for many years. You know everything and don't tell me anything. It said that for my sake, I'm going to have a good life. You have the final say. He was about to question when the sound of knocking on the car window came from outside the car. Who is it? At this time, Chu Zihang, who has always disliked getting angry, couldn't help but vent his anger. Calm down, brother. Lu Mingfei suddenly spoke up. His calm and composed attitude was like a piece of ice, freezing the flames of obscurity in Chu Zihang's heart. Then he realized that something was wrong. How could someone knock on the window of a 120 km per hour Maybach on an unmanned high bridge? Sit firmly. Chu Tianjiao gritted his teeth and stepped on the accelerator again. Maybach quickly accelerated to 160 km per hour, and at this high blood pressure speed that the traffic police saw, the knocking sound disappeared. Just as Chu Zihang thought he had already gotten rid of it, the knocking sound rang again. This time, there was also a silhouette of a human figure appearing faintly outside the car window. 1, 2, 3 They are some tall, some short, some thin, and some fat. But Chu Zihang has a feeling that they are all the same. A silver and dazzling light shone into Maybach from all directions, turning both father and son's faces pale. Fear has captured his heart, and even in the eyes of others, no matter how excellent he may be, he is actually just an introverted underage. At this moment, Chu Zihang instinctively looked at Lu Mingfei. Will this person who is always out of place and a bit old-fashioned feel scared when faced with such a situation? Of course not. Chu Zihang only saw a calm face, with a silver-white light shining on his head as if crowning him. Don't let fear control you, brother. Lu Mingfei looked at him and said, just like he admonished those new soldiers in the battle group. Star warriors are not afraid, they are just more determined than mortals. What are those? Ghosts. Chu Zihang forced himself to calm down, but his voice still trembled. I don't know, brother. But that's not important. Lu Mingfei shook his head. Not important. He could hardly believe hearing such an answer. That strange thing, Lu Mingfei actually said it's not important. I don't know what it is, are you afraid to swing your sword? Lu Mingfei stared into Chu Zihang's eyes. Even ordinary people should have basic courage. He waited for Chu Zihang's answer and evaluated whether he still had the qualifications to be his brother. I don't know. Chu Zihang lowered his head and his hand holding the hilt of the sword turned slightly white. It's okay, brother. I'll run ahead of you. Lu Mingfei comforted. This answer is not excellent, but it is also considered qualified. Okay. Chu Zihang nodded and his breathing gradually returned to normal. You have a good friend, son. Chu Tianjiao has been listening to their conversation. He felt a bit disappointed because it was not his father who comforted his son. But he also felt relieved, because even if he was gone, Chu Zihang would not be without a guide. The sound became even denser, and the knocking on the door turned into the sound of scraping glass, which was disgusting and annoying. But Lu Mingfei remained calm and obtained additional information from it. No matter what those things are, they are already planning to come in. Hold on tight. Chu Tianjiao shouted again and then pulled out a black long-handled umbrella from the compartment of the car door. No, that's not an umbrella, it's a tanless sword inserted into the pitch-black scabbard. Chu Zihang once read a book introducing Japanese swords, which said that craftsmen only do not add tan to two types of swords. One type is the cane and knife made in Japan to evade the ban after the abandoned knife order. One type is a divine sword enshrined in a shrine and not used for practical combat. The precious scabbard made of shark skin indicates that it is highly likely to be a divine sword, a craft. But even if it's a handicraft, it's still a knife. Why would a driver put this kind of thing in the boss's car? Chu Zihang doesn't know how to explain, and the driver himself doesn't have time to explain now. Chu Tianjiao pulled out the blade, its smooth surface reflecting a silver-white light, as clear as water. From both an artistic and practical perspective, this is a rare masterpiece. However, Chu Tianjiao had no intention of showing any mercy and directly stabbed through the car door with his backhand, half inside and half outside. Then, he slammed on the brake and the wheels let out a continuous mournful roar as they decelerated almost aggressively. Fortunately, the modified anti-slip tires withstood the test and did not slip or overturn directly. But those eerie black figures didn't have such good luck. Under inertia, the figure on the left lined up to commit suicide, and black blood mixed with rainwater floated in the air. Some even seeped into the car through cracks, and thick black blood slowly slid down the top of the car window. No matter who sees this scene, the fortress of reason is bound to collapse. But just as Chu Zihang's pupils were contracting, one hand gripped his shoulder. Don't be afraid, brother, do it like me. Lu Mingfei said. How to do it? Chu Zihang thought in confusion, then saw him stab through the car window with a sword. The broad sword body nailed a black shadow in mid-air, and black blood flowed out of the wound, which was then carried away by the wind and rain. Come on, you can do it too. Lu Mingfei turned around and said gently. I can't. Chu Zihang wanted to say this, but another thought in his heart stopped him. He trusts you, can you trust him? Brother. For so many years, Chu Zihang thought he only had a young mother, but now another person told him they were brothers. Charge into battle, only live to death. He shouted a statement that he didn't even know what it was, gripping the hilt with both hands and piercing forward with force. The thinner but also sharper blade pierced through the glass, then gave Chu Zihang a real tactile sensation. He stabbed me. Upon hearing his cry, Lu Mingfei was somewhat surprised. The war roar that was occasionally shouted was remembered by Chu Zihang and even shouted out. Not bad, very energetic. He smiled and then a sword pierced through a head protruding from the roof of the car. The black figure, who had been stabbed on the shoulder by Chu Zihang, let out a hoarse whisper, and his tightly closed eyes opened, revealing a pair of golden eyes. Chu Zihang was struck by an electric shock, and he hugged his head in pain. Countless messy blue lines came to life, wriggling in his mind like twisted words or a sacrificial dance. Countless mysterious and terrifying scenes were awakened within his body, flashing before his eyes like slides. A three-eyed young man with a bone sword inserted into his chest, a pregnant girl writhing in pain on the altar, a black-winged woman covering the sky, and a white-haired woman with bleeding eyes. Don't say it again. Chu Zihang waved his hand vigorously, trying to stop them from telling him those lost histories. It's Lingxia, your bloodline has been opened. I really hope this day will never come. Chu Tianjiao let out a painful sigh. What is Lingxia? Lu Mingfei asked. A special kind of vision that only people with special bloodlines can possess. Chu Tianjiao looked in shock at the rearview mirror. In Lu Mingfei's eyes, two golden pupils were blazing brightly. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Pseudo God Odin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Pseudo God Odin, Blood Sorrow. What I should have thought of long ago is that mixed-race people are only attracted to mixed-race people. He gave a bitter smile. Of course, Lu Mingfei also saw his own eyes, and those noble and mysterious eyes brought him only disgust. The blasphemous bloodline dares to use the sacred gold. As is well known, the Lord of Humanity loves gold the most, and the forbidden army personally crafted by the Emperor is a golden warrior. And gold naturally became the most noble color of the empire. However, now is not the time to delve deeper into the matter. After a brief moment of anger, reason quickly gained the upper hand. How do we get out of here? Lu Mingfei asked. Wait for the rain to stop, then find the exit. Chu Tianjiao replied. Although I don't know what the relationship between the rain stopping and leaving is, there's no need to make things about witchcraft so clear. After all, he is not the director of a think tank. Then keep driving forward. Lu Mingfei said. I know this without you having to say it. Chu Tianjiao has already stepped on the accelerator again, and the speed has skyrocketed to 180 km per hour. Perhaps the shadows were afraid, but this time they didn't accelerate to keep up. Chu Tianjiao relaxed slightly and curiously asked Mingfei the way. Why didn't you? Not influenced by Lingxia. Lu Mingfei asked in response. Yes. Chu Tianjiao nodded. Compared to those I have seen before, those memories are just children's books. He said indifferently. People who have never seen an entire planet corrupted and distorted by subspaces are not enough to talk about terror. Are things that young people are seeing so explosive now? It seems like I need to learn how to go online. Chu Tianjiao clearly understood something else. Lu Mingfei ignored the middle-aged man's fantasies and grabbed Chu Zihang's shoulders, forcing him to look directly at him. Brother, look at me. Chu Zihang's dull eyes met Lu Mingfei's gaze. After the illusion was suppressed by him, the golden pupils gradually extinguished. Don't be influenced by hallucinations, read along with me. Lu Mingfei recited prayers in a devout tone. Worship the immortal emperor because he is our protector. Praise the immortal emperor for sacrificing himself for humanity. The sublimation of the immortal emperor is due to his rigorous guidance. Chu Zihang was like a chanting skull, mechanically repeating Lu Mingfei's prayers. But gradually, his voice became emotional, and his eyes regained clarity. Okay, it seems that the God you believe in is really useful. Chu Tianjiao shrugged his shoulders. You have another chance to blaspheme my lord. Lu Mingfei glanced at him. For the sake of his hometown, he will give ignorant people 3 times the patience. Okay, I won't say it anymore. Chu Tianjiao made a gesture of sewing his mouth. He doesn't want an internal conflict at this time. Moreover, with this kid's performance, he may not be able to beat him if he doesn't speak up. While they were chatting, Maybach had already reached a top speed of 275 km per hour. After running wildly for more than 10 minutes, a deceleration sign finally flashed by the roadside. 1 kilometer ahead is the toll station, which means the exit is about to arrive. It should be in the normal area. After passing the toll booth, you and your classmates should get off the car and take a ride back. Chu Tianjiao took out a few banknotes and handed them to Chu Zihang, then pulled out a knife from the car door. Where are you going? Chu Zihang has regained consciousness. Find a way to get rid of them. Don't worry, this is Maybach worth 9 million yuan, and I'm sure I'll race faster than them. You didn't beat them just now. Chu Zihang was somewhat speechless, but he didn't know what to say. I'm joking. Your dad is very strong, he can kill as many as he comes. It was just you who were influencing my performance. Chu Tianjiao smiled and emphasized again. It's really okay, I still have to attend your parent-teacher meeting. Don't worry, son. When you get into college, I will definitely send you to report. But it's best not to go abroad. If you want to go to Harvard, Cambridge, and so on. Don't go to Castle College, I heard it's just a fake university without a graduation certificate. Amidst the man's chatter, Maybach continued to move forward at lightning speed, the lights at the toll station getting closer and closer, giving a feeling of warmth as if returning home. But just as Chu Zihang thought this eerie road was about to come to an end, Chu Tianjiao suddenly stepped on the brake. Not right. He stared intently at the light in front of him, with a tall figure standing tall in it. Odin. Chu Tianjiao gritted his teeth and said. As if hearing his call, the tall figure walked out of the halo. Originally, it was not a figure, but a person riding a horse. The eight-legged heavenly horse is draped in silver like snow. White hair, and its armor is composed of circular metal plates, engraved with mysterious texts without repetition. Tianma stopped not far from Maybach, and 8 sturdy horse legs, like elephant legs, took turns trampling on the ground. The hard cement road surface was dug out one after another with grooves. And its owner, the iron-faced knight in dark gold armor, was looking down at them from a high position, with his golden one-eyed eyes emitting a grand and solemn light. It's really Odin. Of course, Chu Zihang knew the leader of the Asa tribe in Norse mythology. His mount, armor and appearance are exactly the same as those in myths and legends, as well as the curved spear in his hand. Why? Why did the king of the gods in mythology come to this world? The divine king inserted his spear into the road, and the 8-legged heavenly horse slowly knelt down, as if taking himself as the throne again. Countless black shadows emerged from the light behind Odin, with the same black clothes, the same pale face, and the same hollow golden shining pupils. Surrounding Maybach in all directions, it seems like a priest holding a sacrificial ceremony. We should go now, brother. Lu Mingfei put down his hands crossed in his chest. This is the heavenly eagle rite, a gesture of greeting between the people of the empire, which can also be used for prayer. Where are we going? Chu Zihang was somewhat inexplicable. Go and exterminate the alien form. Lu Mingfei opened the car door. That twisted posture, that blasphemous blood, these things are no longer ordinary humans and must be completely eliminated. Why are young people so fierce now? Chu Tianjiao reluctantly took out a black suitcase from under the co-pilot seat, with a silver nameplate engraved with a lush growing tree. Let's go, son. He got off the car and walked to the side of the back car, opened the car door, and took Chu Zihang's arm to pull him out of the car. Chu Zihang had never felt that his father's hands were so warm and powerful. Stay with your brothers, don't be too far or too close to me. Chu Tianjiao also spoke to Lu Mingfei afterwards. Lu Mingfei nodded silently, and Chu Tianjiao seemed very clear about what had happened. He chose to respect the opinions of professionals. Just like when he used to cooperate with judges, grey knights, and silent nuns. The 8-legged heavenly horse impatiently sprayed electric light, and the black shadow slowly approached the 3 of them. Chu Zihang could hear their greedy hissing. Can you talk about it? Chu Tianjiao took 2 steps forward. God does not accept negotiations. Odin's voice was as solemn and grand as his body. I know you want this, I'll give it to you and let us go. He lifted the black suitcase. God will forgive you and grant you eternal life. Odin's voice rolled and echoed in the air. Stop teasing me, is that all? Can this also be called alive? Chu Tianjiao pointed his knife at the black shadows. Your bloodline is stronger, and I will give you a more noble identity. Odin said. A more noble identity than a monster is still a monster. He sneered at Odin's words. The Divine King did not answer, which seemed to be a default. So there's no need to talk about it, right? Chu Tianjiao split his legs, spread out his hands, and his posture and language matched perfectly. Those who come to the kingdom of God will come again, because they will become servants of God. With Odin's words, the shadows seemed to receive some command and slowly approached the three of them. The negotiation has broken down. Remember my words, take your classmates to the car, step on the gas pedal all the way, and never turn back. Chu Tianjiao walked up to Chu Zihang and whispered in his ear. Chu Zihang looked at his father in a daze, feeling as if he was saying his last words. Take care of your mother. Chu Tianjiao patted his shoulder and was about to turn around when a figure rushed towards the deity ahead of him. Damn it, this young man really has a head on him. He was so shocked that his suitcase almost loosened. Lu Mingfei didn't know what had happened, but he heard Chu Tianjiao say that the negotiations had broken down. Based on his experience in cooperating with the judge's actions, this sentence translates to kill them all. Using alloy steel as the main material, the hand half-sword, which utilizes folding clip steel, covering soil and burning blades, as well as other skills of fire lizard craftsmen, has reached the limit of hardness and sharpness of the material itself. The first sword he personally crafted in his hometown, just as he drank the blood of the alien form, Kaifeng. Lu Mingfei avoided the approaching claws, cut off the invisible wind blade, and then split the caster's neck in half. This kind of wizard's little trick has nowhere to hide in front of him. Lu Mingfei grabbed the fallen head, his pale face covered in small scales, his sharp teeth filling his entire mouth, and his golden vertical pupils were both hollow and cruel. Without a doubt, this is the alien. His peaceful hometown surprisingly had such things, and the elderly, whose retirement plans were disrupted, were burning with anger. You will definitely pay the price for this. Lu Mingfei casually threw away his head, and a terrifying aura was released from his rational cage. On the tip of his foot, his figure drifted like a willow leaf blown away by the wind towards the hungry black shadows. But just as the shadows were howling for a meal, the swaying willow leaves turned into heavy mountains. The steel sword fell from the sky and pierced through the spine of a black shadow, then was easily pulled out, swung in an arc, and beheaded the other black shadow. As a millennium-old soldier, Lu Mingfei naturally knows how to penetrate the body to reduce the resistance of muscles and bones. Pulling out his steel sword, he swiftly dodged the wind blade from behind and kicked down a dark shadow to disrupt the enemy's attack. The bodies of the shadows are much stronger than they appear, and they do not have much advantage in strength. But with the crushing of his skills and experience, Lu Mingfei will always be able to control his enemies within 3. Meanwhile, his extremely sensitive hands and reflexes also provided a lot of help. While hitting the enemy, Lu Mingfei was also able to twist the joints of other enemies with his left fist. Son, come and see God quickly. Even at such times, Chu Tianjiao still couldn't hold his mouth. Chu Zihang ignored him, he already knew what was wrong with this man. He just stared intently at Lu Mingfei in battle, never thinking that he could be so calm as a person chopping people. Just like a person holding scissors, trimming the weeds in their own garden. Waves of heat surged through Chu Zihang's veins, a primitive instinct driving him to do something. But he held back and didn't move. Chu Zihang was waiting, although he didn't know what he was waiting for. What are you waiting for, brother? Lu Mingfei looked at him with the overlapping black shadows that were too heavy, and said calmly. Here we go. Chu Zihang held another sword and rushed into the encirclement of the alien form. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Young people should blaze lightning. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 9. Young people should blaze lightning, son. Chu Tianjiao widened his eyes. He instinctively reached out his hand and withdrew it. Well, it might be safer to have that incredibly strong young man around. Hey, little Superman. Be careful of those dead attendants, their lives are very hard. Chu Tianjiao spoke out as a reminder. Lu Mingfei observed carefully. Sure enough, a black figure he thought was dead was trying to grab his ankle. Lu Mingfei kicked off its head with a calm expression, and this tenacious life reminded him of those green beasts. However, in terms of mindlessness, death attendants are even better. Try to cut off their necks and spine as much as possible, being careful not to be caught by their claws. Lu Mingfei imparted his experience to Chu Zihang. At this moment, his golden pupils lit up again. Perhaps because of this, the speed of the death attendants significantly decreased, and they no longer used the invisible wind blade attacks. Okay. Chu Zihang responded. Despite mustering up courage, he still felt heavy pressure as soon as he got started. Most of these monsters have thin bodies, like snakes walking upright. But his strength is much greater than that of an ordinary person, and he can't resist a hard fight. However, Chu Zihang also has an advantage. Although the body of the death attendant is very tough, it still cannot withstand the long sword tailored for him by Lu Mingfei. A sharp blade with a blade width of 0.9 microns is not an exaggeration to say short hair blowing. Moreover, although death attendants also have combat skills, they are too rigid and rigid. Compared to the non-galactic swordsmanship of Lu Ming, just like the comparison between Trega and Diga. Chu Zihang, who was beaten by Lu Mingfei 64-80 times, had already improved his ability to withstand pressure to a very high level. He gritted his teeth and used all the swordsmanship he had learned, but surprisingly managed to drag down 2 death attendants. Well done, brother. Lu Mingfei praised it. Appropriate praise can inspire loyalty more than admonition. He is like this on the battlefield, slaughtering enemies while paying attention to the performance of the new blood of the battle team and giving feedback. Once, Lu Mingfei subconsciously praised the commander of the battle team, and afterwards felt embarrassed for a while. However, the commander of the battle team took pride in himself and even boasted about it with other sub-commanders of the battle team. It has been proven that the experience of the Warhammer universe also applies to one's hometown. After receiving recognition from Lu Mingfei, Chu Zihang's movements became much smoother again, and he even began to try counterattacks. Move forward, brother. Lu Mingfei used his dreamy swordsmanship to weave a tight net, pulling the death attendant step by step forward. No matter the blades, claws, or sharp teeth can stop his steadfast steps. Either transform into a marionette under his sword, or transform from a death attendant into a corpse. In the storm, Lu Mingfei is not like a traveling emperor, but those shadows are like accompanying servants. Are young people nowadays monsters? Your classmate is actually from the Dragon King. Chu Tianjiao finished cutting off the alien in front of him, and just as he wanted to care about his son, he saw this scene. Extremely shocked, he couldn't help but complain crazily, and even said some taboo words. Fortunately, he didn't shout out loud. Given the level of noise in the environment, Chu Zihang and the others probably didn't hear him. Then Chu Tianjiao realized that not only Lu Mingfei, but also his son, who was introverted and stubborn, had already become so strong. That kind of swordsmanship is not comparable to him at this age. Everyone is so powerful, it makes me look inferior as an adult. Chu Tianjiao's smile was even more mischievous, but his eyes were sharp like a samurai sword. He threw out his suitcase with force, and half of the black shadow chased after him like a dog chasing a frisbee, while the remaining half remained trapped in Lu Mingfei's net. Stop chopping those brainless things, little tough guy, these things can't be killed. Chu Tianjiao shouted as he ran forward. He planned to attract the attention of the remaining eunuchs and Odin, and then let Lu Mingfei drive away with Chu Zihang. Okay, I'll go kill that fake god. You take the Chu Zihang brothers first. Lu Mingfei tore apart the web he had woven and instantly killed the death attendants of several key nodes, causing several loopholes to appear in the originally dense encirclement. Go to your father's side, brother. He pushed Chu Zihang out of the crowd and charged towards the deity still sitting in the throne without looking back. The local young people are too impolite to snatch my lines. Chu Tianjiao complained in a low voice and then saw his son also preparing to charge forward. He quickly followed and grabbed Chu Zihang, whispering. Ordinary weapons cannot harm that god. There is also a handful of village rain in the co-pilot's car door. Bring it to your classmate. The village rain mentioned by Chu Tianjiao clearly refers to the imperial divine sword in his hand without tan. Chu Zihang gritted his teeth and nodded, then turned around and ran towards Maybach. Now you can let go of your hands and feet. The man smiled, and an invisible curtain unfolded around him. On this stage, time became slow, wind and rain became sticky, and everything was like a slow movie. Only he himself, the protagonist in this drama, can run wildly without being affected. But outside the curtain, time still flowed as usual, and Lu Mingfei had already arrived before the throne. How dare you face the gods directly? Odin looked down at the tiny human in front of him. God. Lu Mingfei couldn't help but laugh out loud. He has seen those who claim to be gods, but the worst of them also have an entire armored division. This alien leader, who still uses his claws and teeth as weapons, actually claims to be a deity. The last time Lu Ming heard such a funny joke was when he was dealing with a rebellious planet. The governor of that planet submitted a document to the Imperial Ministry of Justice, claiming that he had tens of millions of troops under his command, and even if the emperor personally led troops to attack, he would pay a heavy price. It has been proven that his tens of millions of troops were unable to withstand the 2 volleys of the battle fleet. You have offended God. Odin felt Lu Mingfei's disdain, and his golden one-eyed eyes shone even more dazzling. Go to hell with your dignity, pseudo-god. Lu Mingfei leaped high, and a cold golden light overflowed from his body, attached to the blade of his sword. Odin felt the deadly danger from the cold golden light. He looked up slightly and an invisible air wall blocked between the two. The rainwater fell on the air wall and evaporated instantly, indicating that the wall still had extremely high temperatures. His clothes and hair were charred under high temperature, but another force protected his body. But this still cannot stop Lu Mingfei. The sword blade wielded by Emperor Weili cuts open the air wall like a cake. However, the time gained was enough for Odin to make other moves. He reached out and pointed, countless black shadows appeared out of thin air like ghosts, with his mouth full of sharp teeth open, waiting for Lu Mingfei's fall. Want to fight in a group? I don't agree. At the moment of crisis, Chu Tianjiao's arrogant roar suddenly exploded. The equally invisible curtain enveloped the throne, and everything entered the effect of Yanling, times 0, except for Chu Tianjiao. And Odin. Stupid, your trick is ineffective against the gods. The king of the gods said coldly. Who said I'm going to use it on you? Chu Tianjiao chuckled. Come on, super newcomer. He shouted towards the sky, his golden pupils oozing red and black blood due to excessive use of speech. The next second, Lu Mingfei crashed down. After accelerating more than 10 times, the impact directly created a small shockwave, blowing away the death attendant and Chu Tianjiao who were watching for several meters. Odin roared angrily, with a deep visible bone wound on his chest. The cold flames burned his internal organs, causing him to feel the pain of a long time ago. God is injured. But Lu Mingfei showed regret on his face. The sword could have cut off the head of the false god, but it was still pushed off the blade with blasphemous power. Those who offend God will surely perish. Odin punched Lu Mingfei away, ignoring the injury in his chest and slowly opening his arm. The twisted spear, like a branch, is ready to fire, like a story waiting for its chapters to arrive. I'm sorry. Chu Tianjiao, who was lying crooked, grew up with a big mouth and knew the gun of fate. Once thrown, the outcome is already predetermined. The answer is self-evident as to who to turn to. Hey, Odin, that suitcase is fake and I really hid it. He ignored the blood spurting out of his mouth and shouted loudly, trying to attract Odin's attention. But Chu Tianzhao's efforts were ineffective, and Odin was completely unmoved. It seems that in the eyes of this god, there is nothing more important than killing this blasphemer at this moment. Kung Kunil drew a huge parabola in the air, a terrifying artifact that flew silently. It's not fast, but Lu Mingfei didn't try to dodge. The warrior's intuition told him that dodging was meaningless. But that doesn't mean he will sit idly by. Lu Mingfei was holding a steel sword in both hands, preparing for the final chop. "Brother, can I help you?" The little boy who claimed to be Lu Mingze suddenly appeared on his shoulder. After his appearance, the entire time on the elevated road seemed to have completely frozen. The shouting Chu Tianzhao, the nearby Kung Gunir, and the angry deity all froze at this moment. Lu Mingfei watched him quietly, but remained silent. "You're going to die." Lu Mingze pointed to the spear, as if reminding him to face the current situation. "My life has long belonged to humanity and the Emperor." Lu Mingfei was indifferent to the impending death. Even so, he had been looking forward to it for a long time. Few interstellar warriors can survive to the second golden nail, and even fewer have survived 1,000 years. Countless conspiracies, countless wars, countless betrayals, countless sacrifices, countless hopes have emerged and shattered. Lu Mingfei was already physically and mentally exhausted, and he even repeatedly requested to carry out deadly missions in order to return to the Golden Throne and obtain eternal rest. Unfortunately, his sense of responsibility and strength always enabled him to return victorious. Perhaps, there is also some imperial humor mixed in here. In short, dying in battle is a kind of luck for Lu Mingfei. But your classmate is also going to die. You seem to call him brother. You haven't even called me that before. The little boy complained. What do you want? Lu Mingfei went straight to the topic. Nothing at all. Even if you show sincerity this time, make sure to summon me proactively next time you have business. The little boy blinked his eyes. Then, he reached out and grabbed Kunganil. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The Fate of Deviation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. The Fate of Deviation. The pure white and slender little hand clenched onto the tip of Kunganil's gun. Countless white threads grow out, but cannot truly touch the little boy. Although I can transfer fate, someone will eventually bear it. To whom do you want to transfer it, brother? The little boy asked with great interest. My fate doesn't need to be transferred to others. Without any hesitation, Lu Mingfei said. A boring answer, brother, you've become too boring. The little boy sighed and shook his head. Devil, no matter what you want to do, you'd better hurry up. My patience is limited. His tone sounded like the one being asked for help. But Lu Mingze just ate this one. Hi, you're such an impatient guy. It turns out that you could wait for Chen Wenwen to go online for an afternoon at an internet cafe. While roast, the little boy fiddled with the threads of fate and turned them to the direction of Chu Tianzhao. That's all I can do, don't be too pushy, brother. Even with the help of the gods you believe in, you can't beat Odin now. Lu Mingze snapped his fingers and his figure instantly disappeared. Time resumed its flow, and Kun Gunir completed a drift in front of Lu Mingfei, heading straight towards Chu Tianzhao. A big question mark popped out of Chu Tianzhao's head. Didn't you just go towards that little Superman? Why are you running towards yourself again? However, this is exactly what he wants. Ignoring the mournful cries from his body, Chu Tianzhao launched a second burst of blood. This ability is considered taboo among mixed-race individuals, elevating his dragon lineage to a terrifying level. The green and black scales have covered the skin, and sharp bone spurs have grown at the joints of the body. Chu Tianjiao could feel that his humanity was rapidly fading. Take my son first. He shouted loudly towards Lu Mingfei. Take him with you and I'll cushion your back. Lu Mingfei completely ignored Lu Ming's words. Don't be so arrogant, Electric Eye Kid. You can't hold on to this guy. Wait until you learn how to speak your mind before coming back to play Dragon Quest. As Chu Tianjiao spoke, he activated his speech again. The terrifying acceleration made it impossible for the rain to keep up with his speed, causing him to create a personal void. Lu Mingfei glanced at Odin, who was covering his wound, and turned to walk towards Maybach. He can ignore the temptation of Lu Mingze, but he cannot refuse Chu Tianjiao's plea. Eat me, soaring dragon, Odin. A man who has failed for a lifetime runs towards the gods, while his most successful work is staring at his back in a daze. Let's go. Lu Mingfei pulled him into Maybach and then jumped into the driver's seat. What will my dad do? Chu Zihang trembled and asked. He also had many wounds on his body, and the loss of blood and warmth made his face slightly pale. I'm sorry, brother. Lu Mingfei sighed and punched him unconscious. He can let Chu Zihang face it on his own, but he can also make choices on his behalf. Out of the kindness of a retired elder, Lu Mingfei chose the latter. Stepping on the accelerator to the bottom, Maybach raced towards the exit. Odin certainly wouldn't allow it. He let go of the wound and wiped it with his hand, blocking the way with an invisible wall. As Maybach was about to crash into an iron wall, Lu Mingfei had no intention of slowing down at all. Instead, he stepped on the gas pedal deeply. He believes that man will pave the way for them. Where are you looking? Odin. Chu Tianjiao made his debut from the darkness, his crystal-clear divine sword, Murakami Yudai, with an irreversible speed, cutting towards the wound of the god. The more devout, the more worshipped, the more worshipped, the more slaughter. This knife is meant to split the god in half. Odin withdrew his palm and clenched his fist, hitting the spine of the knife. The non-human force directly drove the village rain into the bridge deck, just like Chu Tianjiao was preparing to chop down the ground from the beginning. However, although the attack is ineffective, the invisible wall also dissipates due to the interruption of casting. Maybach roared angrily and rushed into the symbolic light of hope. Hey, it's truly a $9 million car that runs fast. Chu Tianjiao said proudly. His eyes had turned completely golden, and the radiance was no less than that of Odin. This is a manifestation of 3 rounds of critical health, and Chu Tianjiao's bloodline concentration at this moment is comparable to that of the Dragon King. Come on, Odin, let me see how much weight you have. He was covered in a mist of blood, inviting the gods who were also bleeding. You're awake, brother. Lu Mingfei looked at Chu Zihang, greeted by a pair of angry eyes. Why? Why not stay? Chu Zihang roared sadly. Because you still have unfinished responsibilities. Lu Mingfei said calmly. Responsibility. Is responsibility to abandon my father and run away. For the first time, he found Lu Mingfei's inexplicable words so repulsive. Let me tell you a story, brother. Lu Mingfei was not angry about it, but instead told a story in a nostalgic tone. That was when he had just finished nailing his first service gold nail. The governor of a planet reported the discovery of a space junk, and the technical sergeant felt that the appearance analysis of the spacecraft should be a product of the Dark Age humans. As is well known, the Dark Age means losing technology and STC templates. Especially for the latter, even if they cannot be used for their own purposes, they can exchange a large amount of useful materials with the mechanical Shintoism, and even win friendships in a casting world. So, the commander of the battle group at that time sent Lu Mingfei to lead a small team to scout the abandoned ship. However, there was an entire gene thief clan hidden on the abandoned spacecraft. However, due to his carelessness, Lu Mingfei almost completely destroyed the trap set by the gene thief's nest owner in the team. I watched my battle brothers die one after another in front of me, their power armor easily torn apart, their noble bodies torn apart by alien forms. And all of this was due to my overconfidence. He stared at Chu Zihang. Even though it had been thousands of years, the anger and pain were still like yesterday. I really wanted to die and wash away my shame with a decisive charge, but the pharmacist grabbed me with his broken hand. He said, "Brother, you need to go back and tell the commander of the battle about the situation, eliminate these blasphemous alien forms, and reclaim the sacred genetic seeds." Lu Mingfei grabbed Chu Zihang's arm and his tone became stern. "Do you understand, brother? That false god wants us to be his servants, so your father probably hasn't died yet. So you need to become even stronger, and then go take down that fake god and save your father." Chu Zihang did not respond or make any further actions, just silently looking at the imperial divine sword in his hand. After the wind speed decreased, the government sent trailers one by one to pull down the cars trapped on the elevated road. Everyone who was rescued couldn't help but feel ecstatic, hugging and crying with their families who had been waiting at the intersection for a long time. The scene was touching. And when the last person rescued and their family left, there was still no figure of that man. He was probably left on the non-existent elevated bridge. That man once said that if someone like him dies one day, there is only one thing in this world that can prove his existence, which is Chu Zihang, who is bleeding half of his blood. This is the only successful work in his failed life. Idiot. Chu Zihang trembled and said. Lu Mingfei couldn't understand the emotions between father and son, but he knew it was best not to speak up at this time. How can we become stronger? Chu Zihang suddenly asked. I can continue to teach you the methods of combat, and as for the alien power in your body, after sufficient understanding, you can also make appropriate use of it. He hesitated for a moment and said. There are no 19 surgical transformations or spiritual abilities in this world. It is difficult to deal with those aliens simply by relying on the physical body of mortals. So, this is a temporary measure. Lu Mingfei prayed to the emperor in his heart and did not receive any negative revelation. Think about it, after all, this is a pristine earth, and human genes are much purer than the 40,000-year-old Terra. Even if it's a mixed race. Is the golden flame attached to the sword the power of the deity you believe in? Chu Zihang asked. Yes. That's the emperor's fire, which can burn down all evil and impurity. Lu Mingfei nodded and said. Although I don't know why the great power of the human lord returned to his hometown with him, there's no need to make things so clear about the emperor. If I believe in him, can I also possess this power? Chu Zihang asked again. Are you willing to fight to protect humanity? Are you willing to die for your duty? Are you willing to give up everything you have as a mortal for better combat? After finishing speaking, Lu Mingfei realized something was wrong. Now that he is also an ordinary person, Chu Zihang does not have 19 surgeries to perform. Fortunately, Chu Zihang did not find any problems among them. I don't know. He said somewhat bewildered. After all, he is just a child who has just lost his father. Let's go back and rest first, brother. Your mother is still waiting for you at home. Come back to me when you calm down. Lu Mingfei patted his shoulder. Take care of your mother. That man has said this many times. He didn't go back all night, that foolish mother should have started to daydream. Chu Zihang nodded. After that rainy night, nothing seemed to happen. Lu Mingfei's golden pupils turned black, and his body did not grow scales or bone spurs. But he could feel that the alien veins were slowly awakening within his body. However, the emperor's great power suppressed the power of blood, allowing it to only transform Lu Mingfei's body to the extent permitted. If completely released, Lu Mingfei's body can be strengthened to a terrifying level in a short period of time, even comparable to the new recruits of Star Warriors. Of course, this is impossible. Tolerating the existence of alien bloodlines is already his limit. Fully accepting the idea of alien bloodlines, those rebellious interstellar warriors would exclaim disgusted upon hearing it. A week later, Chu Zihang arrived at the door of Lu Mingfei's class. Chu Zihang, who are you looking for? Lu Miao won the first greeting right with a limited edition Hello Kitty card. I'm looking for him. He pointed to Lu Mingfei, who was reading a book, and said. The latter is reading an English teaching aid book, which he borrowed from Zhao Menghua and is said to be very helpful for reading comprehension. Not looking for herself, Lu Miao felt a bit disappointed. But thinking that she wasn't looking for a girl, she became happy again. Then I'll help you call him. She was very proactive in helping and didn't feel like it was unnecessary. Lu Mingfei, Chu Zihang called you. The girl's shout was full of vitality. Chu Zihang. Which Chu Zihang? Which other Chu Zihang could it be? Of course it's that one. Why did he come to find Lu Mingfei? He's so handsome, I love him so much. Amidst loud whispers, Lu Mingfei stood up. You're here, brother. He walked up to Chu Zihang. Chu Zihang nodded and said with a firm gaze. Are you free? I want to hear from you about the great emperor. End of this chapter.